I'm not sure what I'm going to do because, like, I just got back from AnimeNorth yesterday, and I want to talk about it for a little bit. I'll probably go off on tangents. Shocking, I know. But my videos are going into June, like almost the end of June. So it's going to be confusing for a bit, but I'm going to be releasing, I'm going to let those ones just release on their own at 6 a.m. every day, every weekday. And it's going to start publishing these videos publicly as soon as I upload them, because I don't like to be a month ahead, because I don't know what's going on when people reply to my videos, which is usually within the week of releasing, and they're talking about stuff I did a month ago and I forget. I forget what I had for breakfast. But yeah, speaking of which, I just got back from AnimeNorth yesterday. Yay! Backstage pass. We're not worthy. And hello, my name's Dave. I think I was supposed to turn that back in. I also have my drink here because I won't say convention crud, but it was, there was, whatever. Anyway, it is what it is. So, my third time at AnimeNorth. Friday was quieter than I remember. Saturday was packed, literally the entire day. It was just packed. I'm glad we had our big area that we could hang out in. And Sunday was packed for a few hours, and then kind of got a little quiet around 3 or 4, and it closes at 5. So I started taking down about 1:45. Slowly. I let the monorails run, but I started putting away the spaceships about 4:45. I was done a little after 6, so over an hour to get the layout down into the boxes, which is all right because Sandy was at home and she had to come and pick me up. Us up because Josh stayed with me. I don't know if I was just distracted at this show for everything else. I was just kind of 100% focused on our presentation and mine specifically, because the layout overall, and we'll go into some details, overall the layout was not disappointing at all, but there was some moments and some issues that just annoyed me, as it always does in every single show I've ever done. so it's nothing new there. I have not done one single show ever in the history of me doing shows where my stuff doesn't annoy me in some way, shape, or form. Now, again, I like my stuff, but there were some problems. Anyway, so overall, I'm gonna say this: the presentation that Torolug put on, it was fantastic. The builds that were on display, even the repetitive ones, such as the CN Tower, which I never get tired of seeing. I hope that's at every single show I ever do, because it's the CN Tower. So, and I will grow less bored of the CN Tower over years than I will of my layout. So, because it's the CN Tower. But everybody else's stuff was wonderful. There wasn't just a good or mediocre, good, or well. They were fantastic and above. Fantastic, awesome, and superb. There wasn't any one thing there that says, oh, that's nice and all, but you didn't have to bring it to a show. Not one thing at that show from the Lego presentation from Torolug was like below awesome. The people there were great, as always. Torolug, good people. It is slightly different for me, for doing shows, for doing presentation. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I'll try to explain it without too many tangents. So, we were doing shows before Brickfest started. No, Brickfest started in whatever year, 19, whatever. So we were doing other people's shows before a Lego convention was actually started by Christina. Thank you, Christina. And so we would be invited to the hobby show, or the train show, or the Christmas show, or the spring show, or whatever else show. And first Alan Bedford ran it, and that was fantastic at the hobby show. And then I ran it at the hobby show, and then we were approached by the Doug and Frank shows. Which Doug and Frank, for those of you who are in the know, for that very niche people who I think Jeff is the only one that watches these videos, so he's the only one that's going to actually get the Doug and Frank shows. That they just kept on inviting us. It was fantastic. Whatever show they did in Toronto, hey, invite the Lego guys, no matter what show it was, train show, collector show, whatever. We showed up, and they would call me up. They send me an email, whatever. Hey, Dave, how much space do you need? I said, give me 40 feet by 40 feet. No, I had no idea at that point in that email that I would be able to fill in 40 feet by 40 feet. So you're talking about 160 feet of perimeter of tables. Eventually the space layout started showing up, but that wasn't at the beginnings of the first shows. And the train layout that the Jeremy, Jeff, and Callum and Derek made would also show up at these things. But before that, we would just bring little mocks and put it on, and we would have so many things to display that some people could not. There was no table space for it. And so we would, on Friday, we put something out, and then we put it in a box and put something else on Saturday and swap them out. That's how packed the 40 by 40 area got. And then the rest of us would be sitting inside and shooting the breeze and blah, blah, blah. You can go back and some of my excuse me, I do have a little bit of stuffiness from the convention crud, I think it was. You can go back and look at some of my space layouts from prior to 2011 and see some of the layouts that we did at shows, and you can see in the background of all the other stuff that we had out there. And I did try to, in some shows, to take videos of everything else, but I will say I like being part of Toro Lug. I like being part of a lug. It is not worse or better. It is different than my time at RTL Toronto. And I think specifically because I'm gonna say it's a generational thing. Like, I love the people in the Toro Lug. I really do. Just give me a sec. I'm gonna go off screen. It is different, and I think it's because Toro Lug was already pre-established before I joined it, and there's reasons for that, which we don't have to dwell on here. But I was basically at RTL 3 back in 1999, 2000, I can't remember what year. Lost in the echelons of history, antiquity of history, for RTL 3, which was a marble sorting robot competition at the place where Chris worked, St. Michael's Hall, I think it was. So I missed 1 and 2 because I did not know them at the time, Chris and Callum. But I met them at the Guelph thing during the Guelph robot competition, and then I started hanging out with RTL Toronto. And so at the beginning, there was just a core bunch of 6 of us-ish. And then as it got bigger, I still was there. And so I'm coming into Toro Lug, being a new member of an already pre-established lug, and it's like, oh, there's 80 people as part of the lug, and I know 5 of them. So it's like, huh. and that's fine. And again, I don't go to every event, and that's the other thing. Like, for me to get to Toro Lug events, like, and whatever, it's me driving into Toronto, like, all the time. Now I go once a month for dinner, which has now been taken over by Toro Lug, which is what we used to do with RTL Toronto. So I brought that over. And the same people show up, the same cast of characters show up at the dinner. And the people who show up at shows, like I've done AnimeNorth 3 times now with Toro Lug. I did a few other shows with Toro Lug, and it seems to be overall the same people who show up at shows out of all the members of Toronto. Now, again, no fault to anybody. It is, I don't know 80 or 150 people, how many members are in Toro Lug, but it's different. and I love it. I mean, I love the people that I've met in Torlug. They're fantastic people. They're salt of the earth people, and we put on a fantastic show, which is what I want. And I keep on mentioning this since I've become just, I think, over 55. Probably even started before that. I don't think it goes back to the robot competitions, although again, the robot competitions were spectacular. Put that in your book. But I think I'm at the point now in my life where the building is secondary. The actual Lego itself is secondary to the show. I love doing shows. I love showing up. I love not being part of the organization, as Janie knows. Not being part of the organization. The grunt for the brute grunt work in the beginning to get a show to take place or whatever. Hey, show up and talk to the public. I'm your guy. Because I can talk, as my voice attests, because it's Ghanaian. I'll talk all day. And the other thing is because this is where I'm coming from. And again, nobody else has to do this. This is not a guilt trip on literally anybody else. Everybody can play their own game the way they want. Since I was, quote unquote, responsible, don't put me in charge of anything. Since I was, for the longest time, responsible, the responsible entity for providing the liaison, hey, 40 by 40 area, guys, we have to fill it. I felt, but and I will say this, I'm going to actually improvise this. Even when it was Alan Bedford's show, the hobby show, before it became I was the liaison for the Lego people to the hobby show. Even when I was working with Alan Bedford on the hobby show, I would be there the entire weekend at this show, at our display area. It's very, very few times where I left the display area to go to the washroom or to look around, especially at the Toy Trade and all shows, because they would be vendors selling stuff, usually sometimes Lego. And so Jeff and I would walk around for an hour, but for the rest of the time, I'd be in our little area talking to the audience, talking to friends, fixing something, whatever. The entire weekend, as long as there was public hours, I'd be at the booth. That's what I call it, at the booth. And that's what I wanted to do. It's what I want to do. And I still do it, even at the Bricks and the Six during the public days. I'm usually on the floor at our Lego conventions. I'm not off in some symposium or whatever. I mean, I do try to take part in, Dirty Brickster and stuff like that. But during public hours, I'm usually 100% of the time, I'll say 98% of the time, I'm in the area where closer to layout, because it does need to be babysat, which we'll still get into. But scoping out other people or talking to other fans or talking to public, whatever. Unofficially, because I don't want to be like the official representation of this group or whatever. But I love shows. I love interacting with the public. I love seeing everybody else's stuff. I love the enthusiasm. Again, I talk about this ad nauseum. You've heard me talk about before, other people's passions for whatever they're passionate about. I feed off of that. I feed off of other people's excitement. I couldn't care less, normally, except for Lego stuff, I couldn't care less about what they're enthused about. Because in Rick in his truck, what do I care? It's a vehicle. It gets me to point A to point B. But his enthusiasm, I remember to this day, as a teenager, hanging around and just feeding off his enthusiasm, his truck, and he's like, getting the torque wrenches and whatever, and telling me all the ins and outs of all the stuff that I, over my head, don't care. He's enthusiastic about it. I'm going to absolutely pay attention, whatever. So I love shows. I absolutely love shows. I enjoy people's enthusiasm. And at AnimeNorth this year, I was exactly the same. It was the same as every other year, where people's enthusiasm is contagious to me. I love it. Hanging around. So the builds are great. The people that were there were awesome. We got some chats in, and I met some new people that just joined the lug. Fantastic. Lovely people. And their builds are, again, spectacular, awesome to spectacular. They're brand new people to the lug, and they showed up with something to present, and it was knocked out of the park. It was Babe Ruth knocking it bye-bye. It's like the natural Robert Redford. If you want to watch a great movie, not to go off on a tangent, Glenn Close, Robert Redford, Robert Prosky, and a whole bunch of other people that you'll recognize. The Natural came out in the 80s, I think. I love sports movies, even though I don't play sports. The Natural is one of my favorite movies. Anyway, they knocked it out of the park with what they brought to the show, and it was a wonderfully, stunningly wonderful piece. Brand new people to Torlug, and I was just enthralled by it and them because they're enthralling. And so I love shows, period. Now, I don't get to a lot of shows, which is, my life, and I don't mind that. I don't have to be there. I think maybe I would probably appreciate shows less if I went to every single one. I wish I was Abner, straight up. If I had Abner's lifestyle, thank you, Abner. I live vicariously through Abner. Straight up, I do. I met him at Brick Fest way back in the day, and online on Lugnut well before then. He's one of my favorite Lego fans of all time. Abner is, straight up. I mean, I have some really really core people who are not in the Ontario area, they're distributed throughout the world. Really bunch of group of us that have been hanging out for 24 years online and sometimes at events that I absolutely will move the world for them. And Abner's one of them. Joe Mino, another one. Love Joe. Larry, got you covered. There's a list of a dozen people I left out there, but I'll just talk about whatever. And so, yeah, the Toronto show, wonderful. So every other mock there did not have to be babysat. So let's talk about that now. So on to point 2, the babysitting. It was the Saturday. Overall, no babysitting at all. None. I don't think I had to do anything on Saturday for the entire day. I think I tweaked the program a little bit because, surprisingly, in the morning, the monorail, but mostly the train, the 9-volt train loop at the bottom, the motor itself is slower and it gets faster through the day. So, I programmed the stops, and in the morning it's to this side of the building towards it before it stops, and then by afternoon it's past the building before it stops. And I go, set it up. So throughout the day I adjust the timing. Like, I think I did it 2 or 3 times on Saturday to adjust the timing of the train loop, especially the train loop. The monorails overall stop where they're supposed to stop, which is great. I think there was a few times I had to change some timing, but I don't remember it too much. What I found to be extremely annoying is on one of the monorail trains, the shuttle carrier train, is that on Sunday it was painfully obvious to see that there was something wrong with it. It was painful. It was a stutter. And then, of course, the timing is like, so it was up far before the station and whatever, because it was stuttering. And I thought, it's got to be the pickups. It has to be the pickups. So I looked at the pickups, and the soldering to the braided wire was whatever. So I just cut off the braided wire, because you see me do the braided wire the other day. The braided wire worked fantastically on the other, the top one, the single passenger car on the top. So that thing ran flawlessly the entire weekend, except for one thing I'll talk about in a sec. But the shuttle carrier on Sunday just kept on stuttering, and I was like, so I had to take the whole thing apart, pull some wire out, and this is why I put the extra wire in there, by the way, so I could pull the wire out and just use the wire strands as the pickups. And after I did that, it did run flawlessly after that. Got rid of the braided wire, which is annoying because the braided wire worked on the other ones. It didn't work on that one for whatever reason. So that was fine. The little single passenger monorail in the top loop, I had to stop at the tower, at the platform at the tower, and I had to stop around the habitat, and I had to stop on the downslope of the monorail station. And what had happened, and it happens even with the battery monorail, if you stop it on the slope, it doesn't start again. The gear on the motor is binding with the rack of the rail, and you actually have to push backwards for a little bit so it could, because it's wedged or something, I don't know. So I had to go back into programming, and I removed the stop at the monorail station. So now the little thing goes down the slope, and then it stops at the habitat and goes back up the slope and stops at the tower. Oh well. So, the other thing I tried, and this is what I did on Saturday because I had all the time in the world because nothing was going wrong with it. The other thing I tried is every so often, I started at Saturday morning and I was talking to people and blah, blah, blah. And I would look over and there was nothing moving on the layout. I'm going, there's nothing moving on the layout. There's something wrong. And I run over there and by the time I get there, things are moving in. Because the pause at the stations is something like 10 seconds or sometimes even more. I can't remember the exact number I chose. But it's a long time. Maybe it's even 20 seconds. And there are certain times when all the trains are at a station and it's stopped. And people are walking by and nothing's moving. And I thought, oh, that's got to stop. That's got to stop. So I thought, hey, I'm going to change the programming code that if one train is stopped, the other ones will just keep going past their station. And so therefore, there'll be something moving at all times. So I put that code in there, forgetting the fact, stupidly forgetting the fact, that you have the one little train on the top loop that hits its monorail station every 5 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. So of course that's the one that's going to stop all the time, and the rest of them are just going to keep on running. It was very. I watched it for 15 minutes. It was very few times when the other trains got to the station while the top one wasn't stopped. I just put a sem in there, a semaphore, so that if there's one train stopped, then the other ones can't stop. So I thought after watching it for 15 minutes, okay, screw it. There can be times that all the trains can be stopped, and I can't help that. So I took out all the semaphores, I took out all that programming code, updated the RCXs, and so all the trains were running all at the same time. And if one stopped and the other one stopped, and they all stopped at the same time, oh well. Because again, I did think about it, because usually when they stop, the 3 trains stop at the habitat, which is kind of neat because you see all the trains stop right there, and then one goes and the other one goes and the other one goes. It's kind of neat. And also at the rocket platform. So I justified me removing all that code to make sure there's a train moving at all times, whichever one it is. I just got rid of the code. And so I will live with the fact that all trains can potentially be stopped at the same time at their stations. Point number 3, and I mentioned this during my live video that I uploaded. I don't think it was live, but I videotaped it and I uploaded it at the show. The wiring is a certified disaster. For every loop, there are 2 wires, one for the sensor, one for the power. And they all have to go back to the RCX, or the 2 RCXs that I'm using. So I'm using up 5 output ports, I'm using up 5 input ports on the RCXs. So 3.1a issue is all that work I put into making that little slidey thing to connect the wires to at the back of my power unit, using those 2x8 electric plates, I'm going to rip out. It was a wonderful idea. It was a spectacular idea, but it doesn't work, because right now anyway, the wires going to the lighting are too short, so that whole power unit is tucked in under the layout, and so only that fold out you can access, and so you can't get behind it to connect the wires to that thing. As well, the wires aren't going through the table; they're coming around the outside of the table, and then I can't tuck them back in, and blah blah blah. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I'm gonna take those things right out and just plug things right on top of the RCX. Actually, I have a better idea, but I won't get into that right now. So that's point 1. Point 2 is the wiring itself. There are 2 connection points for the loops, 2 loops that are the power and the sensor are connected to at the rocket platform, which is the furthest corner away from the power center, because it's right at the front right, and the power center is in the back middle. And so I have to run all those wires, 4 of them, because 2 power and 2 sensors, all the way back to the power center. So I had them hanging off the side for most of the show. And then I thought, I don't have to have them hanging off the side. I can just kind of tuck them in between the train track and the stanchions that hold up the monorail, which I did, which made it a lot better. But still, it was, oh my goodness. So the wiring was sucked. And then of course the top loop that goes to the tower platform is on the other side, it's back left. Then I have to get back there. And the train track and the first main loop are right in front of the power center. So that's kind of easy because I put it right there. So I have those 10 wires to get back to where the monorails are. I mean, the RCXs are, and connect them nicely. So I have a tentative plan that I'm going to work on over the next couple of weeks. I got a show in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to come up with a somewhat ad hoc but valid where the wires are run through a conduit-ish thing, which you can hide them, so it's right on the base plates, and it runs the wires through and make it look spacey, to make the holder of the wires look spacey. You know, with the white and black tiles with the black slashes on it. I mean, the yellow and black Daedra tiles, or something therein that would just hold the wires while it gets back and go underneath the track and blah, blah, blah. So that's my plan. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. I have to pull them out and start working on that. And but I would want that to be in place before Niagara Falls, because I'm going to be in Niagara Falls in 2 weeks doing the exactly same layout, and I want it to look nicer there. I want it to look nice for AnimeNorth too, don't get me wrong. I just didn't have the wherewithal, but after seeing it at AnimeNorth where I'm at, and again, this is, to go off in this tangent, this is the good part about the layout as it is now, because it is well established now. The structure, the layout is well established. I don't even need to read the instructions anymore, which is fine for me. But the idea is that now that part is easy to set up and take down and maintain, I can now start enhancing. A lot of people ask me, am I going to change it up? Like, people probably, oh, I saw this last year, it looks the same. I said, well, the trains stop at every station now, and it's lit, which it wasn't last year at AnimeNorth. I didn't light up everything. I did not put the light standards out there on the base plates, but the buildings themselves were lit up because I just had to use the 120 volt to 3 volt connector that Rob Hendricks sold me and plug them into the 3 volt connectors. So the habitat was lit up, the rocket platform was lit up, and the tower was lit up, which was perfect because that's all I needed. I didn't need the base plates lit up because the lights never turned off, so you wouldn't need it. So that took an extra 30 minutes to get set up, but that's perfectly acceptable. I'm going to be faster next time, but so the lighting was great, and with the lighting being there, I also, had all that set up, so that was a draw, and I talked to a lot of people about that when they said, people checked out everything in our display, and sometimes there are 2 or 3 people deep all the way around, which is great, and they paused at the layout, which is, so, because, and people ask, sometimes we got in this conversation, there was a few people that wanted a lengthy conversation about it. And I said, I knew from way back when, the hobby show, probably the Alan Bedford hobby shows, that there are 2 things that are going to draw people's eyes more than just aesthetic display. Movement and lighting. You add those 2 things, movement first, lighting second. Because you got something moving, kids are going to come. No matter what, kids are going to come to see movement. As they see something moving, they're going to show up. It's like train shows. You add lighting, adults are more impressed with lighting and movement. And if you add lighting on the movement, which is what I've done now, because most of my train cars, most of my monorails are lit up now. So that's just the catch me out. That's just taking it to the next level. And so that's what I've been working on all these years, is to get the movement and lighting. Now, my next step is audience interactivity. I mentioned it before. Haven't gotten there yet. I don't have the Easter egg thing. I don't have anything. But that is in the head, not out in the world. It is going to happen. But movement and lighting is what I'm working on. And the fact that I decided to light it this time, I wasn't initially planning on lighting it at all. But I did bring the bottom unit to my power center, which has the lighting wires in it. I said, it's here anyway. And I wanted, and more importantly for the operation of it, the lighting has to be at least working in the launch pad, because the lighting at the launch pad is the light that lights the sensor, so the sensor knows when the monorail goes past it. So without that, the loops 3 and 4 are not working properly. So, because those lights are built in. The rest of the lights are going back to the RCX and powered by the RCX. But that one, the rocket gantry, actually it holds the lights that shine into the light sensor. So that one has to be powered separately. It is what it is. I didn't build it any other way. Those were the first two I built, and they were just built in because it was convenient to put them right in the gantry. So that's why I started lighting it. I said, since I'm already underneath here and I'm lighting up the rocket platform, I might as well just run the one connector over to the habitat, and I might as well run the 3 connectors into the tower. And then I was done. So that wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard at all to run those. Now, lighting up all the base plates, I have to run 20 little connectors, which takes too much time. And nobody's going to care because it's as I said, the lights don't turn off. So so that worked well, except for the really ugly wiring that went across and hanging from things. So I have 2 things to fix before the Niagara Falls Comic Con in 2 weeks. The one I'm going to work on first is the sensor light combination on the top monorail, because right now it's just ad hoc, and I want to make it prettier. I was thinking of running it through the moon base corridors that are already there, because then you won't see it until it gets to the bottom and comes back to the RCX. So that's a plan. But first I actually have to build the nice, because you saw me build, well, I don't know if I released it yet. See, that's my problem. That's why I'm going to start releasing videos publicly as soon as I film them. When I built the light sensors and the lighting to the sensors for the train loop and the main loop, I built those right before the show, Wednesday or Thursday before the show, and tested them. They worked perfect, flawless. And again, I couldn't test them before the show. So the fact that they worked, not a shock, but because it's pretty simple, but they work flawlessly. So I'm going to build the same thing for the top loop, except a lot smaller, a lot more compact. What other thing? The train motor itself started acting up on Sunday. So not only did the shuttle loop start acting up, the train itself started acting up and sputtering. So I thought I needed to replace the motor, the train motor, which I've had at a few shows where I think, I have to take the whole thing apart and replace the train motor, and all of a sudden it starts working again properly. So what I did is I removed the connector from the RCX and I put it on the train controller, and I let it run for 2 hours, just continuously going around in circles. And then I put it back in the RCX and it ran flawlessly the rest of the day. So whatever. I didn't understand it, but hey, that's a fix. That was a quick and easy fix. Updating the layout. This is something I used to do previous, and I even did it at this show until Saturday afternoon and Sunday. I used to wait till there was nobody around for me to turn off the RCXs, because again, in order to update the people who get it, there's again Jeff and nobody else. People who update RCXs know that you cannot have 2 RCXs on, 2 or more RCXs on, and just pick one to update. You actually have to turn off all the other ones or take them out of the range of the IR tower so they don't all update, because the IR tower does not differentiate between RCXs. So this is back 1998. It didn't care. They didn't bring it up for a multi RCX platform. So if you have 2 RCXs on, let's see, RCX. If you have, I think I got there. Look at this. I had it. Yeah, right here. So if you have this thing set up like that, and there's an RCX, let's just say this is an RCX. I actually don't have one. Shocking, I don't have 2 available right now. Usually I have 2 on my desk. And you have the other RCX here, and they're both on, and you say, hey, download this program. That's going to update both of them. It's going to overwrite the program on both RCXs. So you have to turn off one, and then stop the running on this one, and then update this one. And then when you beep, and then you say, oh, then you hit run, you watch it run, and you turn this one back on and hit run. And if you're updating that one, you have to turn this one off and stop this one, leave it on, and update that one. That's the way it is. And I used to wait until there was nobody looking at the layout before I would do that. And that was very few and far between, because people are always looking at the layout. It's a public day, right? So so I said, screw it. I got to the point on Saturday and Sunday, especially Sunday, because it was just painful that I would just, people are watching. I'm just going to duck my head. I'm going to turn off both, turn this one on, update it, turn it back on, or update it and run it again, turn that one on. And it's like a 2-minute waiting for the program to upload. Because I always tried not to impact the user experience negatively. Yet, in my head, I justified it this weekend, is that the negative is that the trains are not working properly and will need updates to the code in order to work properly. And so if I do it now, a little pain now saves a lot of unhappiness later. That's the way I looked at it. I know I shouldn't make such a big deal about it, but it is what it is. But anybody who knows the RTX world will remember that you have to turn off the other ones or take it away and hold it over here and then update this one. If you cover the air tower, that'll work too, but I don't feel like, like trying to hold this thing and try. I just turned it off. Just turned it off. That worked fine. What else was there? The boxes, fantastic again. I cannot sing the praises of the boxes enough. People were asking about it as every show. Oh, how do you take this all down? And you take it apart into all the pieces. And I said, no, this is like these boxes hold everything. And I took a picture. It's on my Facebook of the entire layout up, and then all the entire layout in the 8 boxes. And I think there's some sort of TARDIS thing going on here, because you look at the layout and how big it is, and yet if the whole thing fits, everything on the layout fits into those 8 boxes. And I'm going, oh, that's pretty impressive. So, and it works. There was a little breakage when I got there from Brickomania. Don't tell Dave. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't a lot. The monorail tower is just, it's weak in the middle. I'm not saying it takes after its creator, but it's weak in the middle. And it was, I had to do some quick rebuilding, repositioning. The garage doors in the main tower on the one corner just keep on popping out because the rails coming down are not held on to the base plate by any studs, because it's behind the studs on the driveway, which is a little annoying. I have to find a way of fixing that because it is annoying. I mean, it is what it is right now. I just put a vehicle in there because the doors actually came right off on the one side, and I just put a vehicle in the doorway like it's coming out. So there's my fix. Getting lazy. I'd have to take it apart in order to fix the garage door. So I do plan on, at some point, this is not this year, or maybe not before the next show anyway, is I do plan on taking apart the main level, the base level of the station, especially the one with the garage doors, and rebuilding them to make them stronger, because those 2 sections always break, and it's always annoying, and people can't see in there anyway. So it's like I fully detailed the main floor, but nobody's looking in there. So I'm gonna remove half the niceties and put more strength in them, so they're not breaking every time I put them in storage. What else was there? Landing pads work great. 2 people asked me if I could display their ships. Absolutely. I removed a couple 918s so they could put theirs on there for the show. I love when that happens. I will always do that if it's in scope and appropriate for the layout. Yeah, so that's the layout issues, if you want to call it that, and the happinesses. And again, I say this continuously at the show as well as now. I don't get to see it together until it's at a show. I mean, I did the 2 shows in my driveway, but and there was one time I did set up in the living room, but I had to remove the entire living room in order to find the space enough to set it up in the living room. So I'm not going to do that. So the only time I get to see the layout together, oh, you must have a big house. I keep on, oh, you must have a huge house. No, it's in boxes in the garage. That's where it is. Well, now it's in the basement. But I love seeing it together. It's not an ego thing. I don't think that it's an ego thing. It's the fact that I love classic space. I've always loved classic space. I love classic space since I got to 918 for Christmas. And I always wanted a place for my space guys to live and work and do their jobs. So this has been in my head since I was 10, and there it is. And it's been bigger. I will even say this: the layout has been better in the past, not with the lighting, because the lighting is now. But when Jeff, not the 12x12, the 12x12 was just big. It wasn't great. It was just big. It was a nice layout. It was a big layout. I would have to say the 10x10 at BrickFet, I'm gonna say 2016, maybe 2015, when we had the easy up over it. and it was the accent aigu, the chevron looking layout that was connected to Dave's layout. So we did a collab. That was my favorite display. First of all, collab. Second of all, the layout was 10 by 10 with a little notch out in the back instead of 5 by 7.5, which is much reduced, like 1/3 the size. And Jeff's air station was in there. Jeff's train station was in there. We had a lot more space to display ships and stuff. Like there's this one picture I think was at that show where I had when I was taking it down, I had taken off every single ship and vehicle from the layout and I laid it out in front of the display with the display in the background, and the number of vehicles just covered the carpet and spaceships. I think there was 7 Galaxy Explorers in that one. There was lots of monorails. I had 3 more monorail loops in that one. 3 more monorail loops. I only have 4 monorail. I had like 7 or 8 monorail loops in that 10 by 10. It was fantastic. It is my favorite. That was my favorite layout. The issue was it took so long to set up. It took so long to set up. And if it's 10 by 10 and I want to use the boxes now, let's see. So 5.5 by 7 or 5 by 7.5. I'd have to have at least. This is 8 boxes. I'd have to have at least 20 boxes to do what I'm doing now, with everything stored in boxes. And I don't have the room in the caravan. The caravan, we had the 8 boxes in the caravan, and the rails and the 2x4s, our luggage for the weekend, some food for the weekend, and the caravan was packed. One of the seats was down in the middle, so Josh had one seat and the other seat's down. We could have stuffed more in on top, but then I'm not seeing out the rearview mirror. When we had the red caravan, the whole back was packed because we had the bench seat. You couldn't take that one out because Josh was sitting in it. And so the whole layout fit in the back end of the caravan. But yeah, I couldn't see through the mirror because it went right to the ceiling. Now I have a clear view because it only goes up halfway because it doesn't go higher than the big square boxes. And that works perfectly fine. And I like that better. So I could add maybe 2 or 3 more smaller boxes, but I'm not going to. The 5.5 or the 5 by 7.5, as I say, now it's a good. The benchmark is 2 hours for setup. It took me 3-ish, but I was talking to, and I had the wiring for the lighting and the brick and this from Brickomini. But it was 3 hours, less than 3 hours to set up. But I don't want to be setting up for a day. Janie used to tell people at our shows at BrickFet to not bug Dave, because I'll talk. As you can see, I'll talk. And so when people are bringing their stuff and they start chatting with me, and then I'm chatting with them and I'm not setting up. And so she would come over and admonish them, leave Dave alone. He's setting up, because she knows it's going to take me 4 or 5, 10 hours to set the layout up at 10 by 10. I also, back in the 10 by 10 days, I didn't have the modularity of the monorail. That was every single piece had to be, clicked together. Whereas now I have 150 pieces of monorail, but I have 50 groups of monorail. So it takes me 2/3 less time to set that up. I didn't do that for the old layouts. So that would have made it faster. But I was also throwing out base plates and trying to connect all the base plates together on carpet, which was just a huge pain in the butt. But it worked in the end, because having the layout on the ground was fantastic, which is another reason why I love the layout at BrickFet. The layout was underground. Dave St. Cyr did it over at Bricks in the 6th last year, and it was wonderful to put the layout underground. I can't do that anymore. I can't. Now I could put the rails on the ground, and so it'd be 6 inches above the ground. But I know I could not. I don't think I'd be sore the rest of the week if I tried to put that thing together while it's on the ground. Right now, I just reach in. There it is. Right, I reach for it. Now it's also lower than the tabletop right now, because tables are usually at 32 inches, and the layout's at 22 inches. That's how high the boxes are. So it is lower to the ground, so it's more accessible for younger kids to see it. But underground was fantastic. I love seeing the layout on the ground. I thought it was fantastic. I loved those things. I loved when I left it at Janie's store for those 7 months. It was wonderful. Oh well, look how much time's gone by. I have a lot more to talk about. I might start video 2, but then it's gonna be tomorrow. No, I'm not gonna do video 2. I'm gonna start talking about it now, because I don't have it here, and I'm too lazy on my chair. the moving art project, which I didn't bring this. The audience couldn't interact with it. The moving art went over exceptionally well. I was surprised. I was honestly surprised. I was more than surprised about how much people liked that thing. I set it up. I let it run the weekend. I didn't have to touch it once. And I had to show some people at the show how to turn it on by just spinning the wheel or pressing the button. I am going to come up with something better. I'm going to come up with the same thing that Jeff had with the roulette or the slot machine that dispense candy. So you just wave your hand, non-touchless or touchless, and then it would spin. So I'm going to be doing that possibly before 2 weeks from now. I might actually work on that one first because that should be easy. I really, I just kept on walking past it and people were enthralled by it. So I was more than impressed with that one. So those are my two things that I brought to the show. And yeah, so to wrap this up, I'm going to show you what I did get. Series 26. As I came in a box, Sandy ordered me a complete box of because Costco had it on their website. Costco.ca had it on their website. And so we ordered it Wednesday, and we were going to the show on Friday, and we thought we're not going to get it before we leave the house. And so we told our neighbors that if there was a box on the front step, because they said it was going to be delivered on Friday. And so we were packing the van, and the guy showed up at 11 o'clock, right before we left. Woohoo! So I got to bring it to the show. So Josh and I spent, after I got the layout set up, Josh and I spent an hour. I love this guy. He's so cute. Look at him. He's so cute. I love the Space Girl. Fantastic. She's on the layout now. I took one because there's 3 copies, right, of each one. She's on the layout. He's on the layout. Who else is on the layout? Let me find him. This guy, also on the layout. So when I finished them, I put them on the layout. And where's he? Ice Planet. Oh, my favorite series is 26 minifig. This is spectacularly awesome. This is so quote unquote authentic to actually EVAs, yeah, whatever you call them, MMVs. I can't remember. I love this thing. It looked like it came straight out of, oh, for crying out loud, The Martian. No, not The Martian. Yes, Martian. It looks like it came right out of that. This was perfect. So they're in the layout. And so I already said M-Tron's in the layout, but I'm looking for Ice Planet. This guy. This guy's in the layout too. Yeah, here's the full one. He's in the layout too. So I put my favorite M-Tron and Ice Planet in the layout, and Retro Space Girl in the layout, and then the big ugly alien in the layout. Out of all the Series 36. Excuse me. I hate being sick. And again, I'm going to call it convention crud. But anyway, I like the rest of the fakes too. I do like this guy, although I wouldn't have made him a chef. I would have made him Robbie the Robot. This one is really interesting. Kind of neat. See-through Lego. The baby, wherever there is. With the baby bottle. This one, I didn't mind. You know, I didn't mind all of them. I didn't, you know, some of mine go like, okay, it's kind of a waste of a spot in the 26th. And this guy, I'm sorry, it does remind me of Wild Wild West with Will Smith and Kevin Kline. It is what it is. That's not my favorite figure in this series at all. But anyway, so I'm glad I got all those. I'm going to say I have the ones I want. I bought a whole box, so if somebody else is interested in any of those that I have left over, just let me know, and we'll talk about it. Because I told that to Nick, and he didn't believe me. That's fine. The other thing, these guys were down here because I was working on something. I was working on the monorail train, adding the things. I forgot to bring these to the show. So the shuttle carrier only had 2 of the 3 shuttles on it, and the launch pad only had like a few. So, but I made do. I just have to remember to put those back in the bin, because the bin's right over there. Yeah, so let's wrap this up. Not too many other tangents that I can go on, which would annoy me right now. It was a great show. I had fun every day. I loved the people I hung out with. I loved the display that we gave. As I say, I was kind of oblivious to the rest of the show. I walked around a little bit with Josh, but I wasn't paying attention. I honestly, a friend came to the show and started talking to me, and I was kind of busy with the layout and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, this, how did he put it? How can this be rated to be a family show? And I go, what are you talking about? And there's this, AnimeNorth kind of, it wasn't frequent, but there was some anime costumes that didn't leave anything to the imagination. I was there the entire weekend, and that's the only one I saw because it was pointed out to me, because I was kind of focused on stuff, which I don't mind, because I'm kind of at that age now where, I'm not saying that I'm old and over the hill, but my life's, I don't want to say that either because it's going to sound whatever. It's not that I'm not interested. It's just that my life is very, very good right now, and it's like, and I was honestly focused on the layout because I wanted to make it better, and for a change, because usually I set up the layout and I just, unless it breaks, I'm not going to look at it. But I was really on this show in a state of mind where I was looking for every single thing that I can improve and write it down in my head. And I got a lot of takeaways, and that's what I was working on the entire weekend. And hanging out with Joseph and Nicole and Kelly and Mark and Mike and Victoria and Vivian. Thank you, Vivian, by the way, for being our liaison. And the kids. Nick was there. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And anyway, I'd set it up again. So 52 minutes. That's it. That's all. That's my show wrap up. I don't think I have anything else to talk about. Yeah, that's everything else is not related to the show. So there you go. That's it. Yay! Hardly any tangents. I talked about, the natural, but, why not? You guys all stay safe, take care, and I will talk to you soon.